Ladies and gentlemen, we'd like to start our first session for our technical session in our list of technical sessions here today. In the digital age, data has become one of the most valuable assets for individuals, organizations, governments alike, and we're increasingly relying on technology for communication, business operations, and personal activities. And we are looking at exploring the role of guardian of digital realm, and which delves into the ever-evolving landscape of data security. Now, to take on this topic, we'd like to invite our keynote speaker, ladies and gentlemen, who is a seasoned professional with a significant experience in the payment and risk management industry. He's the Vice President and Visa's Head of Risk Services for India and South Asia. He manages a complex of rapidly evolving ecosystem that includes issuing and acquiring clients, merchants, cardholders, and service providers like processors, device manufacturers, and payment gateways. He currently oversees strategic risk management for the business credit settlement risk, brand protection, fraud management, and data security across the South Asia market. He joined Visa in the year 2018 after previously serving as the Chief Risk and Compliance Officer for Payments Bank, where he was the founding member of the team. And before that, he held the position of Head of Products of the National Payments Corporation of India. And his career also includes a substantial tenure with the Reserve Bank of India. Ladies and gentlemen, he loves reading and exploring cultures of local during his travel and spare time. Please put your hands together for our keynote speaker, Mr. Vipin Suralia.
Thank you so much. Don't trust that biography which he read out. This is what our comms team does. It's a pleasure to be here, and where is Bhushan? So Bhushan, thank you so much for inviting Visa as your partner. Today, our country manager, Avanti, also joins us. Avanti, you are there? Yeah, I can see Avanti. And most of you would, those who are part of the payments industry would have been working with Avanti and her team. If you are not aware, we have been in the market for 35 years. In fact, we just celebrated 35 years a month back. So let me start by thanking each one of you who partner with us for the 35 years of partnership. Thank you so much. We are so privileged to be able to serve you. And let me do a quick show of hands. So how many of you in the room use a Visa card? Everyone. That's everyone. And Visa is a network that works for everyone, everywhere. What I do, I am your trust partner. So while we talk about risk, while we spoke about the challenges, please remember, what we do in payments is like driving your own car. So, you know there is a highway which is built, so treat networks like highways. Treat the banks who issue cards to you like cars. And when you drive cars, you have to follow rules. You have to make sure that when the light is red, you stop. You take a call when it is amber, whether you can go or not. And in green, you know, you can keep going. So that's what our business is about. And this business keeps on evolving. This business keeps on adapting. And historically, and I was going through the CBSL website, there is a very interesting history of how the payments ecosystem in Lanka has evolved, which is so fascinating to read right from the ancient times, different forms of currencies, right from barter to where we are today. And we are privileged, thanks to the way all of you have adopted the digital payment systems, that on demand we can do transactions. And if we have that privilege, it also gives us a responsibility that we manage our payments very carefully. We are careful about to the CBSL website. There is a very interesting history of how the payments ecosystem in Lanka has evolved, which is so fascinating to read right from the ancient times, different forms of currencies, right from barter to where we are today. And we are privileged thanks to the way all of you have adopted the digital payment systems that on demand we can do transactions. And if we have that privilege, it also gives us a responsibility that we manage our payments very carefully. We are careful about how we transact. We are careful about who we share our information with. And in the earlier session, one of the speakers had mentioned on zero trust. I would put it slightly differently. Yes, trust, but with your eyes open. That's the approach that we need to follow. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to run you through what are the key pillars which are driving the growth of digital payments. Of course, adoption by you. You all love digital payments because that allows you to do transaction anytime. If there is any emergency, you are able to transfer money back home. Imagine 30 years back when I joined this industry, there was not a single scheme in the world except card schemes which could be used to do real-time transactions. We had to rely on checks. I grew up at a time when banks used to close at 2:30, and those of you who are my age profile would remember after 2:30 we had to beg, borrow, and steal if we really needed a large sum of money. So we are really privileged that all of you have adopted the payments ecosystem. If you look at it from the perspective of what is happening today, is there are 4 key trends that I would like to call out. So first and foremost, and while AI, ML might sound very new to you, but there are a lot of companies, including us who have been the earlier users of the AI. Some of our banking partners who use our tool are aware of the capabilities that we have been providing for last 35 years. We have been in market using the same capabilities. But what's also happening is, and I'll talk about that in greater detail on the challenges that we foresee, and in the last part of my presentation, I'll also share with you how Visa manages to secure the payments ecosystem, what is our philosophy, what is our security strategy around it. So one is the changes that are happening because of the artificial intelligence and the whole technology disruption which is happening because of the computing power. The second is also because now there is technology available which can generate more data, and there are technologies and tools and processes which some of you have creatively introduced which can harness those data. So what's happening, it's a cycle. So more data is produced, more data is shared, more data is exchanged, and more data allows different kinds of insights, both on the business side, both on being able to identify you, being able to give you best experiences, being able to allow all of you to enjoy a frictionless experience where you don't have to enter your password every time, etc. That's one. Also, because it is all in digital form, the sharing between partners becomes easier. So, and this data deluge, as some of you might call, is increasing. It's really accelerating, and there are reports which say that the amount of data which is being produced on a daily basis now has never been produced in the history of mankind earlier. The third trend is, and it's all about partnership. We also, as a network, we can't do everything alone. We rely on issuers, acquirers, and how we evolved. If you look at the 60 years of our journey, so companies like Visa, Master, Lanka Pay, in the case of Sri Lanka, we act as what are called networks. And the beauty of networks is it is an interoperable model, which means your credentials, your cards will be accepted at every outlet who partners or becomes our members. And this whole chain used to be described in a very simple one acronym, which I think you might be aware or you should remember, which is called MANIC. So MANIC means a merchant. Merchant will always receive money from a bank who's called an acquirer. There will be a network in place, Visa, MasterCard, Amex, Lanka Pay. And on the other side, the bank which issues you card credentials is called an issuer. And the person carrying the card is a cardholder, so MANIC chain. And this is how the industry was 60 years ago. But today, if we look at how the industry has evolved, there is a specialist for everyone. So instead of being a MANIC chain, it has become a very, very amorphous chain. There are within the own Visa ecosystem, what we call ISO or independent sales organization, to third-party agents. So you name it, and we work with every kind of partner. And similar is the story for all the financial institutions, other industries as well, where you are finding that more and more niche players are emerging who are doing a specialist job for you, who are taking away the value-added work that can be done for you, and they partner with you. So none of us are today an island. We have to rely on the third parties, as we call them, or we have to rely on our partner. And the typical example that you would remember is the AWS, where, and it's helping the fintech industry a lot, where fintech industry can, they don't need to invest in hardware, they don't need to invest in buying the associated software. Companies like AWS today offer a space in their cloud or software and hardware as a service model, and it allows you to onboard very quickly. And there are other service providers who provide a bunch of services which we call API. So if you are a fintech, you are living in a golden age where within weeks or months you are able to build your capabilities, offer your unique product to the market based on the cloud partners' capabilities. And there's a dark side to it, which I'll shortly discuss. And then there is this whole journey of the decentralized ledger technologies which have emerged, which is around the crypto and the blockchains. And while the idea was great, a peer-to-peer trust, which it was supposed to create in place of a central authority which monitors, etc. But there are developments which are not so good on this side. But these are the four major industry trends that we are seeing which are driving the digital change. And of course, the love that all of you show, the trust that all of you place. And ultimately, for your banking partners, for networks like us, we have got only two fundamental jobs to perform. Or I'll put it, three fundamental jobs to perform. So first job is nobody should be able to use your credentials. The card number that has been given to you, the card that has been given to you, the account number that has been given to you, no one should be able to use it, A. That's the first job that collectively as an industry we perform. Secondly, you should be able to use it every time you want. It shouldn't so happen that you reach a city, you are trying to check in a hotel, you are not able to use your credentials. That's the second primary job. So all of us collectively who are in the financial services industry and who look after your payment needs are supposed to perform these two fundamental jobs. All other things are value add, all other things are how the industry has evolved, how we need to respond to regulations, etc. But from a perspective of common man in the street, these are the two jobs that we perform collectively for you. Third is, and there are scenarios, there are situations, and going back to my earlier example of driving on the road, unfortunately, sometimes accidents happen. And in that scenario, when accidents happen, you should have a recourse. You should be able to reach out to either your bank should be able to reach out to Visa, we should be able to reach out to the counterparty to solve your problem. So these are the three primary roles that we perform. And not to brag, but the way digital payments have been adopted globally, as well as in the way it is being adopted in Sri Lanka. If I were to do a performance appraisal, Avanti, I think we have been, as an industry, doing a good job. But the challenge is that there are fraudsters, there are people who will try to steal your credentials, or he'll deny you to do the transaction, which I earlier spoke about, or create obfuscation so that you can't rely on who did what. The third scenario of accident I spoke about. There is innovation happening on the dark side of the moon as well, if you happen to be Pink Floyd fans. And the pandemic scenario, the last 2-3 years, what we realized is while the whole set of new people and consumers like our parents, people who had no choice but to use digital transactions, who were unsophisticated first-time users of the payment credentials, came in the fold of the payments ecosystem. Please do remember the other side of the equation also. There are a lot of service providers who came in the industry first time. There are a lot of merchants who became part of the industry first time because they had no choice. All of us had no choice. And it's a great, great commendable effort the information technology teams, the cybersecurity team, the service providers did to make sure that while the world suffers pandemic, payments is something which continues seamlessly. I've never heard of any country or any incident where payments got delayed for months, for weeks. All of you did a phenomenal job in pivoting to be able to continue serving your consumers. And on that note, I would really like each one of you to clap for yourself. That was an amazing, amazing thing that we did for ourselves. Having said that, what has also happened is, I spoke about two sides of the equation. I spoke about the first-time unsophisticated users who started becoming part of the community. I also spoke about merchants who became part of the community, and they started seeing challenges, and they started seeing disputes coming in. So it kind of created a blip in what was a very successful, a very true story that was going on. But the beauty of this industry is, the beauty of all of you collectively is that you partner to respond to a crisis. And to be able to go down in a crisis doesn't define your character. To be able to come back, to be able to come up and respond to a crisis beautifully is what defines our character, what defines the trust for this industry. I'll do a little bit of a deep dive on all the 4 components I spoke about, give you a flavor of what threats we see, what threats happen, etc., so that you are aware. And our awareness of yesterday and today also help us decide our tomorrow. So from that perspective, I just want to share a few thoughts around each of the 4 pillars which are driving digital inclusion I spoke about. So on the computing side of the big topic is around the quantum computing and the kind of impact that it's started having on the whole host of use cases that we are seeing from a consumer experience perspective. There's a lot of R&D which is happening on medicines, pharmaceuticals, and things like that. And there are really exciting innovations coming up our way, which speaks about hyper-personalization, to be able to deliver the medicine as per the needs of each user. Instead of, if I'm suffering from BP, I'm going to buy a Telma 20. Each one of us is forced to buy Telma 20, Telma 40. So those microdosing is an example I wanted to share from healthcare industry. Similarly, the apps which you currently use, and at this stage, let me ask you a question. How many of you last visited your bank in a month's time? Or was it more than a month that you visited a bank? Or when was the last time you visited your bank branch? Okay. So I will share my experience. I visited my bank branch in 2009. That's the last time I visited my bank branch. When did you last visit your bank app? 5 minutes ago? Half an hour ago? It is in days. So that's the kind of hyper-personalization that is happening. Bank is able to give you offers on the front end. It is able to capture more data around it. But from a security perspective, the quantum computing is also throwing up challenges. So today we say the PKI technology is not able to break down the encryption, but I don't know if the bets are off with the quantum computing coming in. And we are also beginning to see if data is stored, and there are guidelines. And my friend Nitin will speak about what are the guidelines for data at rest, but there are possibilities that with quantum computing, the data both in motion and while also at rest can be broken. So it's very difficult to crystal gaze, but with the generative AI, which just came into being in November 2022, we are seeing disruptions which are already happening. So while these are the challenges, I continue to remain an optimist that we collectively, if we put our might and brains together, we can overcome any kind of challenge that is there in the industry. The other interesting piece is, and I started talking about, is the chat GPT and what it can possibly do to disrupt the whole world. And use cases we do here, and I have a grown-up son who one day very curiously came back to me and said that, Dad, I figured out how to make a nuclear bomb. So I said, how did you figure out? He said, I just typed in chat GPT how to make a nuclear bomb, and it gave me a recipe for how to make a nuclear bomb. So I said, what? Young man, why did you do that? What's your next plan of action? He said, now I'm trying to figure out from ChatGPT how to buy the raw material for that. And that's kind of scary. It's really scary. And I'm also scared that he most of the time uses ChatGPT to do his homework. So I don't know where he's going to land up in terms of what knowledge he gathers, but the world from a payments perspective is getting even more scarier. World from the perspective of what ChatGPT and other generative AI tools are bringing is scary shit. In fact, there's a book called Scary Shit on the capabilities, on the disruptions that the artificial intelligence can bring about. The author has a slightly different perspective. He says AI is like a child today, and it will depend on how we grew up our child. Similarly, how as a human race we are able to harness the potential of AI will decide how it evolves. But the scarier part is, and if you look at the entire payment ecosystem has got 4 fundamental building blocks. It's about people, it's about the technology, it's about the data, and it's about the governance and compliance of it. The scarier part of it is the early AI enthusiasts are saying now, at some point in time, technologies like ChatGPT cannot be regulated. So today we have regulators in most industries who are able to guide us, do this, do that, but beyond a point in time, ChatGPT is not going to be guided by any regulation, and that's a scary future, and some of the people believe that the future is already here, it is unevenly distributed. So much on the first pillar. The second one is the kind of piece of talk I want to do about the proliferation of data and open banking. I kind of talked about how we today use a lot of data, which is very fantastic. We are creating a lot more personalized experience, as I spoke about. My Spotify Discover list is always spot on in the recommendation that it gives, and that's because of all the information that they have about me and my listening habits. Similarly, what is happening is that the proliferation of all these data elements that we now are exposed and are on digital platform, available to the web, is moving fraudsters further upstreams from the transaction level to the account level. So earlier they were interested in the transaction information, but they are no longer interested in just knowing your transaction details. They are more interested in knowing your account details. They are more interested in knowing your CVV2 at the back of your card. There is a 3 or a 6-digit number which is there if you're not aware of it, etc. And then they go back and it's off to races. They want to have fun, not just one time, but every time. From a Visa perspective and other banks and cards perspective, card schemes perspective, and the financial institutions we work with, we have been able to detract and prevent a lot of it. Because of the innovations that we have been doing over a period of time, moving from a MagStrip to a chip, I'll talk about subsequently on tokenization. So while we are reducing the riskiness of the transaction, giving tools, AI-based tools to our partners, basis which they can take a decision on either approving or rejecting the transaction, etc. But fraudsters are also innovating. After all, they also have a family to feed. And I'm sure the way we are having a conference here, they might also be having a conference somewhere else, maybe a more exciting location like Bora Bora, if not Colombo. And I love coming back to Colombo. And coming back to the point, once you take over the account, you are able to monetize it many more times than just being able to do it for a single transaction. What's also happening is that we have seen that the synthetic identities have started proliferating basis the digital footprint that you leave on the social media. And who in the room is not on social media? Is there anyone who's not on social media? Every one of, oh, there is a gentleman at the back. There's another one I see. Lucky guys. Otherwise, and again, during COVID, the big shift happened. More than 50% of the human population is now on social media. Can you imagine that number? Almost close to 3.75 billion of us are on the social media. Every day leaving our digital footprint, the food we love, the places we travel, the people we meet, not only exposing ourselves to the fraudsters. And if you saw the film Boshan presented at the beginning of this session, there are people who have been listening, watching what we have been doing for almost 10 months, very patient, because they know the reward is much more enriching. Moving on, and then there's this another kind of open banking, which is like, it's not in a traditional sense, but because of the fact that the ecosystem is used to deliver the digital first services, Some of you are lucky to have been born in a time when you have seen digital first services. I don't know how many of you, but I saw my first mobile phone when I was 25. I can't believe it. I saw my first laptop when I was 27. So, and you are digital first natives. In fact, the country I come from, half of our population was born after 95. They are all living in a different generation. I am like a dinosaur furniture in this industry. I have seen paper, but the exciting journey that has happened over the period of time. Multiple points of vulnerabilities. I spoke about partners earlier. I spoke about APIs. There it talks of open APIs, promoters who say that the API should be open, available to anyone. We should be able to exchange data. The data we voluntarily share not only with the exchange partners, but on apps where we just sign off everything that we shouldn't because we are going to get 10 LKR or 20 LKR cashback. And each one of us has a mobile device, billions of mobile devices. So we are our best risk managers or we are our worst risk managers. Why do fraud happens today? Because of our greed, because of our threat, or because of somebody who calls up and says that there is an immediacy, there is an urgency. And of all these cyber attacks, and we heard ministers speak about it, the biggest bucket today is social engineering. So the 4 blocks I spoke about: data. Yes, data can be secured. Technologies, and thanks to the wonderful work all technology companies have been doing, technologies will keep evolving to secure, to promote growth of business, etc. Rules will keep on evolving till a point of time AI takes it over. Let's hope that situation doesn't happen, or if it takes over, it's better for all the humanity. But it's people who keep falling prey to, as I mentioned, threat, greed, or the immediacy. Somebody calls up and says, your daughter has met with an accident, or your friend needs money. And in yesterday's CEO session, one of you brought up the topic of the mail coming from CEO where he requested for money, and after the money has been transferred, the employee met the CEO and he said, I have transferred the money, sir. And CEO said, what money? I never requested for any money. So, 2 parties to fraud. One is fraudsters, second is our own actions, how responsible we are, how careful we are in practicing what is now becoming a very important 2-word phrase, which is cyber hygiene. So it's very important for all of us to start practicing cyber hygiene so that we collectively ensure that the trust in this industry continues to grow. A couple of more topics. One is on the SaaS fraud. I kind of talked about it earlier. A lot of innovation that has been happening is because of partners. The cost of entry barriers for startups is coming down. As I mentioned, you can book server space on AWS. You could use a lot of pre-built APIs so that you are up and coming. You don't need to code from scratch. And then our partner Anubhav is also there. You can use Google or Facebook to find the customers you are looking for. Great distribution platform. So it's a democratization of innovation and tools that is happening because of all these partnerships which are available. But the same thing is happening on the fraud side, is what we see from our network perspective. Time's up, sorry. I'll quickly run through these slides. So today, as we speak, the fraudsters also have military-grade capabilities. We find nation states behind some of the cyber attacks that we keep seeing. And while the person in the hoodie does represent a hacker, but it's more organized crime in which states are involved, as I mentioned. And this war will continue. These were examples which I wanted to share with you, where today the fraudsters offer ransomware as a service. So they'll only charge you if they are able to infect per device. And as I mentioned, there are military grade capabilities which they have with them, which they use to hyper personalize the individual that they are going to target. That was another example of the ransomware I wanted to share with you. And like all of us who have chief risk officers in our company and they have risk appetites, the fraudsters have also got their ethics. Some of them decide not to hack government institutions, maybe scared of tax authorities coming after them, or hospitals. But there are fraudsters, and Belly spoke about a lot of hospitals being targeted. Cryptocurrency fraud has increased, and it's a lethal combination, because unlike a banking account where you know the person behind the account, in a crypto world, in a distributed ledger world, you never know who's the person who's requesting money, who's the person who's asking for that money. So social engineering plus crypto is a deadly combination that we are seeing, which has really emerged over the last couple of years. I'll quickly close. I mentioned earlier, I'll share with you the secret sauce Visa uses for fighting frauds or securing the ecosystem. And it's just beyond Visa. It's not about Visa adopting that. It's about the industry adopting it. It's thinking beyond Visa's own systems. And data is such an important part of it. So out of the 4 pillars of our security strategy, 3 of them revolve around data. And 4th is about empowerment, because as I mentioned, we can't do it all alone. We believe in empowering our consumers. We believe in empowering our partners. But if you look at the 3 data pillars of security, which is the harness, the devalue, and the protect data, so we place a lot of emphasis on devalue. And I'll give you a very small example. As I mentioned, I'll speak about tokenization. So tokenization is replacing your 16-digit card number with a chunk value, with a value which we call token. So today, if the merchant gets infected, his systems have a data breach. If you have tokenized the card, if the merchant has tokenized the card, the fraudster is not able to do anything about those tokens or the data he has stolen, compared to if you would have stolen your 16-digit card number. Last year in August, for the first time, the number of tokens on a Visa network globally exceeded the number of the PAN or the 16-digit account numbers that we have. So devalue is one pillar. Protect, we have got a standards-based approach to it. We have, as all 4 or 5 major card networks in the world created the PCI, we have invested in that. And my friend Nitin is going to speak about elaborately on what we collectively do to protect data. And the harness pillar, the last pillar I would speak about, is the tools that we offer today give you real-time capability to be able to absorb the intelligence that Visa sees collectively using the global network. So we have tools like, and those of you subscribe to our tools, we have tools like Visa Advanced Authorization, Visa Rules Manager, which allows you to take a decision basis the intelligence we pass you in a transaction. And I mentioned somewhere earlier that we have been using AI tools for a long time. VA, VRM is an example of that. Last 40 years is being used globally. I'll stop here. I think there is a panel discussion, Bhushan, and a Q&A opportunity for everyone. So please feel free to ask questions during that session. And thank you everyone for your patient listening.
For more latest news, subscribe to FTTV.